Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I apologize for the delay. I had a nice little visit with my mother yesterday, and she is also going to be urging me to try out for the X Factor with her next year. She believes I have that kind of talent. I personally think she's off her fucking rocker. But that's beside the point. We're not going to talk about how my mother's fucking awesome and is going to do a collaboration effort with me. No, we're not discussing that. No, today I'm going to read you part 2 of Rainbow Factory. As promised, again, I apologize. So, here we go. This is part 2 of Rainbow Factory.
Oh, Celestia, what do I do? I can't let everyone I know down, but I'll never see Orion again. I suppose. I hope he knew that risk when he did that. I'm sure he's thinking the same thing right now.
She glanced at Orion. He wasn't looking at her. She took off, heartbroken. Instinct kicked in as the familiar rush of wind cooled her and blew her thoughts away. She stopped at the right altitude and then launched again, sensing and seeing every cloud, formulating a game plan. In a matter of a couple dozen seconds, the sky was clear. She did a quick loop in mid-flight, aiming at the first hoop. With a powerful flash of her wings, she propelled forward through the first ring, and then the second, and then the third, expertly turning and drifting. She curved in toward the second-to-last ring, near the bottom of the field. As she descended, she caught sight of Orion and Aurora, almost at the west gate now. Orion turned his head and smiled weakly. Scootaloo's focus shattered. Orion knew what he did. He cared about her. He'd miss her, and he'd never get to say goodbye. Scootaloo cranked into the bottom part of the ring, falling backwards several feet and hitting the ground. With a sudden intense flash of fear, she flipped herself onto her feet and began flapping her wings, levitating off the ground.
Maybe that didn't count as failure,
she thought.
I can still fly. There was a distraction on the field.
She spun around to the judges. 3 hooves pointed down. Scootaloo started crying there, tears welling up and blurring her vision. This wasn't right. This shouldn't have happened. None of it. Orion should have passed his test and cheered her on from the east gate. She shouldn't have looked at him. She should have focused on flying. But there was no room for excuses. Defeated, she slowly hovered towards Orion and settled down next to him. She looked at him through her purple eyes. He looked back, offering a smile.
You did a great job.
Scootaloo dropped her head and sobbed. She then walked around Orion, lifted a wing of her own, and helped Aurora walk to the west gate. Before them stood a long, unlit hallway with only a cheap sign stuck to the wall notifying test failies to proceed down the hall. They waited, only briefly, to gather themselves and prepare for where they would be taken, and then all stepped forward together.
Let's delve deeper into rainbow philosophy, far beyond that of Cloudsdale's mythology. It's easy to misjudge that floating city, with its alluring decor and social psychology.
Against an empty carriage at the end of the lonely hall were 3 imposing ponies, leaning in a disinterested and bored pose. One of them happened to look up as the sorry-looking trio stumbled out into the open. They were on the bottom edge of the Colosseum, with vast rolling hills and plains of Equestria visible far below.
"Hey boss, we got some of them worthless Pegasuses,"
the first one called to an even bigger pony on the other side of the carriage.
"I suppose it's get-to-work time, is it?"
Cool it, hotshot. There may be more, too.
No, I was the last student to go.
Scootaloo spoke in sobs. Orion could only hang his head.
It's...
She paused, and then breathed deeply, determined to remain as strong as she could.
It's just us 3. Aurora's wings, they're broken. She needs help.
Ain't that just a crying shame it is? What's it to us? All the better she don't come flying back to us no more.
We may have failed our damn test, but that doesn't mean we're not worth keeping alive!
Scootaloo shouted in a flash of rage. She was determined to hold on to as much dignity as she could.
All right, sheesh. Hey, Patches, doctor up before we head out. I don't want any blood on them seats. Just wash that thing. You other 2, in the cot.
Orion and Scootaloo hopped into the carriage and got as comfortable as they could on the hard seats, but made sure to leave room for Aurora. As soon as the third of the large ponies finished bandaging her wings, Aurora carefully stepped onto the vehicle and lay down on the bench at the back. Scootaloo inched closer to her and leaned down to talk as the door to the carriage slammed shut. The boss pony was inside the back, standing by the door, watching each of them.
So,
Scootaloo began quietly, trying not to speak too loud.
you're Aurora? I'm Scootaloo. I'm sorry we had to meet like this.
Any meeting of a friend is always a welcome meeting.
Aurora spoke gently, with sincerity in her eyes.
We did our best. That's all we can say. That's all any of us can say. Who's to say that the city of the deported isn't a good one anyways?
The thought struck Scootaloo as she considered it. No one was ever told about where the Pegasi were brought. Most ponies considered it to be some odd land where the zebras hailed from. That made Scootaloo realize something even more profound.
Hey, if where we're taken is where Zikora's from, then there's gotta be a way to get back. It's not as if we're banned from Equestria. Fluttershy, an old friend of mine, she's a Pegasus who lives in Ponyville. She never passed flight school. She never took her test. They've never come and taken her away.
Exactly.
Aurora agreed with a nod. Orion overheard and offered his thoughts.
I think the reason we're sent far away is because no pony from Cloudsdale ever wants to admit that someone who failed flight school could come back from their city. What a fucking horrible place. Now that I think about it, I never want to go back. Maybe that's why no Pegasus ever comes back. They just don't like Cloudsdale.
You goddamn worthless ponies can hardly call yourself Pegasus. Boss spoke up from the door. He was swaying ever so slightly as the carriage was lifted and moved to an unknown location.
Useless failures is what you are. No pony comes back from exile, regardless of reason. Can't even pass your goddamn test. You three make me sick.
Scootaloo jumped up from her seat, lifted herself into the air with her wings, and dove leg first at the boss.
You shut the hell up about us! You have no right to treat others like this!
Boss raised a hoof and backhanded Scootaloo out of the air and onto the floor.
I can treat you however I want. You hardly classify as ponies to Cloudsdale, or any of Equestria for that matter. Now sit the fuck down and shut up until you get to your destination.
Where are we being taken anyways? It's not like we can tell anyone now, and I'm sure as the deliverers you guys should know.
Orion cautiously reasoned.
Hell if I know. We hand this carriage off to the ponies in suits, and we get a bag full of coins to keep quiet about the whole thing. It's how it's always been for 1,000 years.
The three fillies huddled together again, scared of the unknown. They kept quiet as they waded through the unbearable trip, all lost in their own thoughts. Friends, family, loved ones, and pets. All will never see them again, and some would never find out why. An hour passed, and then another. Finally, the uncomfortable quiet was broken by a sudden lurch as the carriage stopped in its flight.
Ah,
Boss smiled.
There's my stop. You ponies play nice now. Have fun in wherever the hell you're sent to.
The carriage door shuffled open and Boss hopped out with a gust of cold wind. It was night outside now, with hardly any light to see at all. Scootaloo stared outside and noticed another figure staring in. It was dressed in a black suit, its tail dyed an unnatural black that never occurred in nature. Its face was covered by a dark, loose-fitting mask, concealing its mane. All that was visible were rose-colored eyes staring indifferently at the three ponies. They stopped on Scootaloo momentarily, unrecognizing, but she stared back. A second passed, the dark pony slammed the door shut and the carriage took off once again.
At least, now we can talk.
Aurora whispered in the dark. But they had nothing to talk about.
But with all great things comes a great responsibility, that of Cloudsdale's being weather stability.
The carriage finally shuddered to a stop. The three desolate foals blinked their eyes awake, having all resolved to conserve energy for whatever came next. With a loud scraping noise, the doors shook and then swung wide open. Several more ponies, obscured by masks and suits, were moving around the area. Scootaloo blinked against the light from which she was seeing. They were in a cloud building. As her eyes adjusted, she noticed more details. Several of the blackened ponies were rushing around, some holding clipboards, some carrying briefcases, and others important-looking items on their backs. The complex was full of machinery and signs. Pipes ran along the ceilings, and a loud whir ran in the background, occasionally joined with other industrial sounds such as crashes and alarms. Scootaloo gasped.
This place. The architecture. It's all so familiar. I think we're in the weather factory!
Orion frowned.
No, that can't be right. We were traveling for way too long. We've got to be far away from Equestria now, not to mention the city.
Actually, Scootaloo may be right,
Aurora mused.
I noticed it was maybe the same amount of time from when we left the Colosseum to the place that the carriage deliverers swapped, that it was from the swap place to here. But I don't know. I'm confused. Maybe that's just a coincidence?
Welcome, mules!
A large, powerful voice commanded. Several of the suited ponies moved to make way for a deep, dark red Pegasus dressed in a white lab coat.
You degenerates are probably wondering where exactly you are. Stupid fillies, you're in Cloudsdale, the Rainbow Facility to be correct. Allow me to show you around.
What's going on here? Do you expect to use us as slaves? Because I'd rather be deported, thanks!
Scootaloo yelled. Orion and Aurora got off their seats and stood behind Scootaloo, nodding in agreement.
Like you failures have a choice. You'll be here for the rest of your lives. Oh, I'm sorry. Where are my manners? I am Dr. Atmosphere. My degree isn't a medical one, I shall reassure you, in case you're picturing some dreadful surgery going on behind the scenes. Strange how so many worthless Pegasus get that idea. No, my degree is in engineering. I'm one of the 4 cults in this facility. I'm sure you've all had the tour of the lower factory, no?
The 3 ponies nodded slowly, unsure of what was going on.
Excellent! Who can tell me where the tour begins?
Orion spoke up first.
Where the spectra comes from upstairs and is mixed. Very good. What a pity you're utterly useless to the flock. You could have been a smart one.
Dr. Atmosphere smiled sadistically and patted Orion on the head.
But today, we're on the upper floor. Please follow me and don't get too far behind, or one of my helpers will be forced to encourage you.
With that, he winked at the suited ponies. Wow, I am really liking this Dr. Atmosphere guy, I'm not even gonna lie. Anyways, this concludes part 2 of Rainbow Factory. I will go on to record part 3 as soon as I am done posting this YouTube video. Again, to those of you who are enjoying this reading, this should be about 4 parts in length, so we're halfway there. I hope you all are enjoying it so far.